Our second resident who's going to talk is Donna Murray. Donna grew up in Lansdale. She attended North Penn schools, and at age 10, she decided writing mystery novels would be fun, and she's never changed her mind since. To date, she has 11 published novels. Her husband, Hench, and she have a son, a daughter, and 3 grandchildren. They also have a succession of Irish setters. Prior to Foulkeways, they lived in Wayne for 40 years, beginning when Hench became the headmaster of Woodland School. Donna's Cozy Mystery series features an amateur sleuth, much like herself, a do-it-yourself headmaster's wife with a troubling interest in crime. The 8th Jen Barnes novel, titled For Better or Worse, was a finalist in the National Indie Excellence Award for Mysteries, and the first 2 mystery crime thrillers in the Lauren Beck series received honorable mention in genre fiction from Writer's Digest. In 2020, Donna became the 10th and inductee into North Penn High School's Lifetime Achievement Award Hall of Fame. The award features a list of her books, and also at the end adds more to come. When she isn't plotting mayhem, Donna assumes that she can fix anything until proven wrong, calls trash picking recycling, and although she should know better by now, adores Irish settlers. Donna and Hench are delighted to be now one-year residents at Foulkeways, and they live near the yellow fire hydrant where their present setter, Kinsey, enjoys. It's a pleasure to introduce Donna.
Thank you. Hi, everybody. Hi. I was thinking that I had to bribe people to come tonight, and I'm delighted to see that wasn't necessary, so thank you all for being here. But what I'm going to do is first tell you what I don't do, then I'll tell you what I do, and then I'll tell you why I do it. I do not write literature. I don't want to write literature, I never have, and I never will. To me, it's more elevated, it's more formal, and it's less accessible. All I wanted to do was write books that everybody could read and enjoy the way I do. I love mysteries too. So I have 2 mystery series. The first one is Cozy Mysteries, and if you're not familiar with that term, it means very little violence and gore, an amateur detective, and an enclosed setting like a small town or a cruise ship or a train, some place where people would be inclined to know each other. My cozy mystery character is Ginger Barnes. She happens to be the wife of the head of school. She has a son and a daughter. Sound a little familiar? It does sound like I was being lazy, but actually I was being very calculating. When we were associated with the school, we had alumni, parents, teachers, all as resources for someone who wanted to solve a crime. And having a boy and girl, which my husband and I do, I could write about anything that I wanted to happen to a young child. So I was being calculated. The other mystery series that I have is Mystery Crime Thriller, and I can tell you more about that in a little bit. The new book that's coming out, by the way, is the 3rd one in that series, and it is live as a paperback, and it comes live as an ebook next week. So I'm very excited about that. A lot of really surprisingly good things are happening to it, and I'm kind of pumped up, so. Yeah. My books are sold worldwide. The ebooks are $4.99. The paperbacks are like $12 to $14, depending on how much it costs to print them. So they're not, you don't have to get them all in the library. The library only lets you have so many there. So, mysteries. Let me tell you a couple things that I like about mysteries. One is that they invite the greatest amount of reader involvement. You can read almost anything else superficially, but mysteries invite you to try to solve the crime before the author tells you who did it. I, as the author, like to make sure that you're always wrong. The other thing I like about mysteries is they are the one kind of book that anthropologists would like to put in a time capsule. Because 100 years from now, they would like to know the minutiae of our everyday life. And that's what mysteries have. We have your cell phones and your microwaves and your electric cars, and all these things could be means to commit the murder, clues, red herrings, or ways to solve the murder. So it's all in there. Whereas if I were writing literature, I would leave all that out. People who write literature expect their books and hope that their books will be timeless, so they don't put anything in there that will change that feeling of where they are. Mystery authors have a completely different goal. As Paul said, I did start to want to write mysteries when I was 10. I was reading Rex Stout and Nero Wolfe books, highly curated by my mother and the librarian because they're clean, they're hard to solve, they have quirky characters, and they're a little bit funny. So I thought, I bet it's fun to write them. And never changed my mind. Now that one decision when I was 10 changed my whole perspective immediately. You wonder how? Well, everything in my life, everything I saw, heard, ate, liked, hated, anything in my life suddenly has become material. And it's the same way right now. When I was older, we had a dog that did something naughty, and I wanted to give him a spank. I missed, hit my elbow in the wall, and immediately thought, ouch. But my second thought was, oh, that's what it feels like to break a bone. Very different perspective from those people. So I grew up. And what did I think of my chosen profession then? Well, I was reading a book by John Gardner, the literary fellow, who wrote a thing called On Becoming a Novelist. And he said, you can't really teach anyone the arts. Sooner or later, they just catch on. And I'm thinking, wait a minute, I just picked something you have to try, learn by trial and error? Brilliant. Well, the other thing that I learned is you'll never have a salary. You'll never be able to predict your income, ever. Another brilliant choice. So, why did I do it? It really did suit me. I like all kinds of people who are different from me especially. I like to solve problems. I like to play with words. I like quirky little factoids like, why did the Beatles sound American when they sang? Why did they put water in ham? Things like that fascinate me. I am also an optimist. Now, if you ever want to write fiction, it is a requirement that you be an optimist. You also would be, well, better off if you were stubborn, because then you will outlast other people who quit. I also don't care much for reality. Reality does not really end the way I think it should very often. Yeah, you've been there. And my books always end exactly how I want them to. So what kept me going for these couple of decades before I got a major publisher to pick me up? What was I doing, and how did I stick with it? Well, I happen to love the work. If anybody's in the arts, you love the work. and you know you love the work, and that's your reward very often, your only reward. And actually, it's a luxury to be able to do what you love. So whether you have success or not, it's still enriching your life every day. What else was keeping me going? Well, my research. One time I was trying to write about a rock climber, and I didn't know much about it, but I thought, okay, I'm going to interview this man who climbs up Mount Everest every other year, and he'll tell me. So when the moment was right, I said, why do you do this? And he looked off in the distance. He said, well, you'll see this rock, and you'll think, I'd like to become more intimate with that. And I thought, you're just as crazy as I thought you were. I interviewed 40 different people. I'm getting a little dry here, hang on. Whoop. Now I can talk. I interviewed 40 different people that had to do with thoroughbred horse racing. And I didn't know how to write a book at the time, but it was fun talking to them. And it resulted in a 300-word article that sold to Ford Times, the magazine that they give to Ford owners. And they also reprinted it in Japanese. I happened to have the watercolor that accompanied the article in our apartment. I also wanted to know how to bollocks up a school bus. And I had a way of doing it that I thought would work, but I wasn't really sure, so I called a mechanic. And I said, you know, what I was planning, and he said, oh, no, please, don't write that. He said, somebody will read it, they'll do it, and I'll have to fix it. Please do this instead. So I did that instead. I also toured NFL films twice, because the first time I forgot to put film in my camera, and they were nice enough to let me come back. NFL films is a fascinating place. They have their own shipping department, they compose their own music. It was a fascinating place. And that resulted in the book called A Score to Settle, which is a cozy mystery, I promise you, about football and babies. I know, it just is. But I promise that people who don't care a fig about football will understand what I'm saying in that book. I made sure of it. There's a story that has to do with why I wrote it in the first place. And when I do the library talk next week, I want you to be able to come because I'm not going to repeat myself. I'm going to tell stories that relate to the books, not necessarily anything I'm saying tonight. So feel free to come to that too, please. By then, I was getting rejections, nice rejections from agents, which doesn't sound really good, but it is. It means you're close enough to being published, but you're not quite there. So I sat myself down and I thought, okay, what am I not doing that they want? Well, they want mystery series. They want the mysteries they want in a series, because that gives you a readership and a repeat customer. So I thought, okay, I can do a series. What else? Well, they want you to write a topic that other people want to read. You'd be surprised how many books are written about things that nobody wants to read. Publishers happen to know that, so they pick something that works. And I thought, okay, I can do that. I like the Philadelphia Flower Show. I think other people would be interested too. I want to know more about it. Now that's the key part. I want to know more about it. Because if I was writing a topic that I know too much about already, my books would read flat. But because I've researched the flower show and learned new information, I'm excited about it. And that excitement finds its way onto the page. Now, all my books have different background topics, and you can tell why. That's my MO. Excuse me. Now, Final Arrangements was the name of that book, and that attracted an agent. He got me a 3-book contract inside of 3 months. I was with St. Martin's Press for 7 books, and Ginger Barnes is actually me. By the seventh book, I sort of wanted a break. Ginger Barnes is pretty sweet. At the time I started those books, my husband was heading a school, my children were in junior high. I didn't want to embarrass anybody with too much activity in my books. So they're really sweet. And I thought, okay, after the 7 books, my kids were grown up, my son was doing something, my husband was doing something different. I'm allowed to grow up, all right? And I thought I would take a break after I completed my contract. One of the editors, I had 4 different ones, one had said, I think you should try a bigger book. And first of all, I thought, okay, what's that? Well, he meant something more global crime, and a more complicated plot. And when I wanted that break, I thought, well, that would be a really fun thing to try to do, stretch myself as an author and just take some time to be somebody else. Well, the problem there was I needed a character. I also needed a crime. One of our friends is an oncologist, and we were on vacation with him. And I said, Kenny, I needed a crime. Do you have any ideas? And he gave me an idea that was so fascinating to me that the 7 years that it took me to get that book done, I was still fascinated. I was doing the other things in between. But meanwhile, I also needed this new character. And I was just open to, whatever I could come across. And Penn broadcasts the University of Pennsylvania football. And every other year we go up to Cornell at the end of November, and the guys hold a mic outside an open window to get the crowd noise. So this little recording booth broadcasting booth, is smaller than a closet, and it's cold. Next door is the VIP lounge for Cornell, and it's warm. And the woman who was hosting over there invited me to sit with them. Okay, so now I'm in the midst of the enemy, trying to be unobtrusive, not too loud for Penn, but the person behind me is talking about pumpkin pecan pie, and I wanted the recipe. So I started a conversation with her. She's older than me. She told me her life story, and she had skydived 34 times. She fed sharks from a cage underwater. She begged to fly retired Air Force planes, the ones that were falling apart. Then she learned to fly them. Then she learned to fix them. And I'm thinking, wow, this is the most brave woman I've ever met. Wouldn't she make a great main character? Yes, Lauren Beck. Okay, start the book. Show it to the agent I had at the time. She says, no, not gonna work. I'm thinking, why? She's heroic, she's cool, she's wonderful. What's wrong? She says, she's too brave. When something exciting happens in the book, she doesn't react, and neither will your readers. So here I am, back to square one, and I go figure, okay, women. Carol, the woman that flies planes and feeds sharks, had also been in and out of an iron lung for 9 years. She was cured, and I thought, okay, what if I give Lauren Beck a major illness? She's cured, but she's still got emotional baggage from it. Her fiance dumped her because she had cancer and he couldn't handle it. So, okay, she's vulnerable, but she also has skills. She's an ex-cop, she can handle herself. Unlike the housewife that I was writing about before, she can handle herself. So that worked. That book was What Doesn't Kill You. And at the time I had my third agent, I tend to fire my agents. I had this third agent who was really inappropriate. He was sloppy with the facts, he was sloppy with his typing, and I'm very meticulous. He also knew nothing about mysteries. He'd only read 4 in his life, and he ruined a book in the marketplace for me. I thought, I can't give him this book I spent 7 years on. So I thought, okay, there's some medical information in there that might become obsolete. to save a year and a half that it might take to get back into New York, I'm going to bring it out myself, which I did. It was just at the time when independent publishing was starting, all the places were in place, all the resources that you needed were in place. And it turns out I really like being in business for myself. I have complete quality control. I have no deadlines, which is really best for me. Higher royalties, and it's fun. The people who help you are so supportive. Whereas when I was with St. Martin's Press, and it's not just me that this was what it was like, it's like the publisher puts your book in a bottle, throws it in the ocean, and if it comes back to shore, they'll help you. If your book sinks, they'll open the door to the next author. That's how it was then, and I'm pretty sure it's worse now because independent publishing is so prevalent. And what you need to know about independent publishing is that 50% of the books on the bestseller lists are by independent authors. And if you help one of the New York books next to one of those good independent books, you won't know the difference. So that's my experience with St. Martin's Press, and I love the being in business. What happened to the first book I did? Well, I entered it in a contest. Writer's Digest is a 100-year-old magazine. I grew up reading it. And in my category, they have one prize and honorable mention, like 2 or 3 of them. My book got honorable mention. So after I learned that, one of the previous judges, past judges, wrote to congratulate me. And she said, by the way, do you know how many books yours had to beat to get honorable mention? I said, no, I had no clue. She said, thousands. And I was sort of blown away. Well, the next book got the same award. And the one after that got the finalist in National Indie Excellence. In other words, I really write better when I'm not up against a deadline. So I'm not going back that way. One of the other things I wanted to say about when I was published with a big publisher, where I was doing a lot of book signings. And up until that time, I thought I was just doing something fun for me. I was making myself happy. But I didn't kid myself that what I was doing had a lot of value. I really didn't know what value it had. But when I was doing book signings, people would come up to me and say things like, oh, you've got a new mystery. I'm going to take this to the hospital with me next week. Or, you know, my father's a shut-in and he only reads mysteries, things like that. And I began to think, okay, people welcome the escape. They really sometimes crave it, and they're grateful for it. So I've never looked at my work the same again. Well, I think we're down to the one thing that everybody asks. Where do I get my ideas? I use the sieve method. That means that I don't write anything down, but if an idea I have kind of goes through the holes of the sieve, I'm not interested enough to write a book about it. If it sticks with me, I am. For example, I heard about a divorcing couple who had joint custody of a show dog. And I thought, wow, that's either one nasty divorce or a really valuable dog. So that stuck with me, but that wasn't really going to be a book. So Hench and I got this Irish setter puppy named Gretzky, sometimes called Greed Gretzky. He was very loving, had a lot of personality, but he was a scamp. And we really needed a trainer. So I thought, okay, what if my character got a Gretzky, needed a trainer, calls her high school friend she knows who trains dogs, and the woman, says, can you help me? And Linda, the woman, says, no, I don't think I can. I think I'm going to be arrested for retraining my guard dog to kill my ex-husband. Now I've got a book. And that book is called Gwynedd Bones About It. All the books that I have are on the table back there for you to look at, and my card so that you can, look at my website or whatever you'd like to do. As I said, I'll be at the library talk next week, and that's my story, and I'm sticking to it.